I wasn't the best behaved kid growing up,
No,
especially when I got into high school. If you were to read my bio kind of on paper, you wouldn't think that I had the childhood that I had. The doctors told me because of that situation, I could never play contact sports, and probably the military was not in all those things. You'll probably see through a few different instances in my story that typically when somebody tells me I can't do something, the Marine Corps gave me an opportunity to leave the situation I was in. And it gave me an opportunity to learn discipline.
I think that similar to you, the mentorship piece has been really important for me. I collect mentors like Pokemon.
My wife finds me in a closet in a position that you never want to put yourself in. She climbs down in there with me and helps pull me out and realize like I need to get help.
Hey, welcome to the Mastering the Military Transition series of the Prize Podcast. My name is PJ, and I'll be your host. The purpose of this podcast is to share the stories of those who have successfully transitioned out of the military so you can see the tips and tricks necessary to have a successful transition of your own. That way you don't have to stumble across some of the same things that myself and my team at Prize had to struggle with. At Prize, we believe in a world where all enjoy the freedom to grow. That's why we're developing the Prize app. If you'd like to learn more, please check out the prize.vet link in the show notes below.
Thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Hey, friends. Welcome to another episode of the Mastering Military Transition series of the Prize Podcast. Today, we have Ryan Loper with us. Ryan is a prior Marine. He was in the Marine Corps from 2007 to 2014. We actually served together, which is pretty cool. So that's going to be a first in this episode. We actually have someone that I've known for a really long time. He was in power plants over there as a mechanic for F-18s, did an IA billet to Afghanistan for a year, 3 deployments. Yeah. So 2 Westpacks, 1 IA to Afghanistan to train the Afghani military and police, right?
Afghan, yep.
And then when he got out, he got his bachelor's and master's in aeronautical and astronautical engineering from Stanford, freaking big brain over here. Did optomechanic engineering over at JPL for about 4 years, which is pretty cool. So we have a rocket scientist here. And then has been working at Atlas Holdings, which is private equity, for the past 3 years, and just started a new role at Carlex as director.
Yes. Yep.
And I guess last but not least, you've been at Prize for 5 years, been serving as a chief culture officer for a bit, and then also the CFO for a bit, which has been super helpful, and I really appreciate that. So, hey man, I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate you in general. You've honestly brought so much to this company, to the culture, to everything that we have done. You've personally taught me a ton. I don't know if I've said this before. You're probably the smartest person I've ever met. Which is pretty amazing.
We got to get you out there more.
Yeah, maybe we do need to get me out there more. But no, I mean, honestly, I really look up to you. You've been someone that has shaped my life in a lot of ways. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And it goes both ways. I wouldn't still be here today if I didn't believe in the team and in the mission and what you've built here, and the people you brought on board. So thank you.
Here.
Yes. But it started with the crazy conversations with you all those years ago. So
it was crazy conversations. Yeah. Throwing a lot of spaghetti at the wall.
Yes.
So to dive in, man, what I would love to do is I'd love to start with a little bit of your journey. I know a bit about your childhood. I know a bit about your time in the Marine Corps and then what's happened afterwards and stuff. But
absolutely,
I would love to hear from you, a little bit of that journey. How was it for you, getting into the military? What was your impetus? Where were you in between the ears?
Yeah,
that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wasn't the best behaved kid growing up, especially when I got into high school. If you were to read my bio kind of on paper, you wouldn't think that I had the childhood that I had. And I think we see that a lot in veterans. We don't always come from the best situations.
Well, not pick a certain type.
Especially in the Marine Corps. But that path made me who I am today. So I'm very grateful that I've had that opportunity to make those changes. But in high school, I think I had a 2.3 when I graduated.
Oh, wow.
So I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I knew college wasn't an option. And I was thinking about joining the military. And I have a great uncle who was a Marine. And the kind of between Korea and Vietnam era and spent some time in both. He was a recon Marine back then.
Oh,
And
cool.
so, when he heard I was potentially joining the military, he called me up and he said, "Hey, if you're going to join a branch, at least be a man about it and join the Marines," was his joke. And so I walked into the Marine Corps office and I had long shaggy hair and a goatee and, kind of had that laid back stoner vibe. And the recruiter started laughing and he's like, "Yeah, get out of here, hippie. Like you'll never make it." And so I walked out and I got, probably about 10 paces from my car. And I was like, who the F is this guy to tell me what I can and can't do? So I marched back in there and said, "Okay, give me the paperwork. Let's do this."
They did that on purpose. Yeah, that was a sales technique.
I learned that later that he was looking for somebody that would walk out and come back, I guess, that was willing to try that. So, the Marine Corps gave me an opportunity to leave the situation I was in. And it gave me an opportunity to learn discipline, and to have a mission and a purpose that I didn't have growing up.
Yeah, but
And so it really helped focus me on a few key things, which is what I needed at that time in my life, especially as a young man. And it helped make me who I am today. So,
well, I believe that 100%. And we've talked a lot about like the people that you've met in the Marine Corps that have helped that as well. So touch a little bit on your childhood, if you don't mind. Like, you don't have to go into any depth or anything, but I want to be able to show, like the full spectrum here.
Yeah.
So like what was growing up like for you?
Yeah. So I grew up, I was born in Pennsylvania, but we moved down the kind of back and forth between Ohio and Indiana. So a lot of it was in southeastern Indiana, close to the Ohio and Kentucky border. We had, by the time, I had a few different things that had happened when I was young. One of those, was one of the first diagnoses of a child with Guillain-Barré syndrome. So when I was in middle school, I went paralyzed from the neck down, and I was at Cincinnati Children's Hospital for 6 months.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever told you that, but I had to learn to walk and talk again, and because I hadn't used those things, so my throat was shredded, and that's if you heard me talk as a kid, I had a thick Indiana, like country accent from my stepdad. I'd kind of learned it from him and growing up around my family there. But I think some of that went away a bit as I got older, relearning those things and having to do physical therapy. And I remember the first time when I was able to move again, getting out of bed and just standing up out of bed was so exhausted that I don't remember if I blacked out or I was really close to it.
Interesting.
It took a toll. So that opportunity, the doctors told me because of that situation, I could never play contact sports, and probably the military wasn't option, all those things, which you'll probably see through a few different instances in my story that typically when somebody tells me I can't do something, it's a challenge to say, okay, well, then that's obviously what I'm going to do. Yeah. Maybe that's why we get along so well. But because of that, then as soon as I was cleared to, start physical activity again and all that, I'd sign up for football. First time I'd played football. Being in Indiana, played basketball. But the home life wasn't always the best. However, it gave me a deep appreciation for the life that I have now. So, married and I have 3 kids, and it's such a precious gift that we're given when you have a partner that's in it with you.
Yeah.
I've seen it a bunch of different times, and if you look at different studies, and like the number one decision you can make, and the best decision you can make is who you marry.
I agree.
And if you choose the right partner that you tackle life with, like you can do anything at that point. There's nothing you can't do. So,
well, we were talking about this last night, right? It can be a 1 + 1 is less than 0.
Yeah.
Or it can be a 1 + 1 = many.
Yeah.
And I think that goes with like any relationship.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is why like the team that we built is as important to me as it is.
100%.
Thank you for that. I did not know about that diagnosis. That's very interesting. And, that actually adds a lot of respect in a lot of ways. Cause I have a friend also, I don't know if I ever told you this. I was in gymnastics in college.
Okay.
Totally for shits and giggles. Like it was like, I didn't do any of it growing
front rolls and
barely. Yeah. Somersaults. It was really funny. Like I had 2 roommates in college that were male cheerleaders.
Yep.
And like, they were both in gymnastics club, and I was at Penn State. Right. And like, they were like, yo, come to gymnastics club. I was like, no. And he was like, I'll teach you how to do a front flip or a back flip or whatever it was. And I was like, okay.
Sold.
Yeah. Right. And I found that the gymnastics club is one of the hardest partying clubs. It is unbelievable. So I had a blast. It was a great time. But it was funny because I would go to like a meet and I had no idea what I was doing. Like these people would be competing on levels like way above any of my ability. And like, I would be like, go up to the high bar and be like, it was
Do a couple pull-ups.
It was silly. Maybe if I could even do that at that point. But I had a buddy who was in gymnastics club, and he's actually over at Apple now. This dude is one of the most incredible gymnasts I've ever seen. Like he would literally go from a splits and slowly push up into a handstand.
Oh, wow.
Never seen anyone do like that in my life. But in college, dude literally was on the high bar, fell up, broke his neck, and was paralyzed from the neck down. And they told me, like, probably never be able to walk, dance, any of that stuff again. And to your point, the dude was like, fuck you, I'll do what I want. And he would just focus like on his toe. It's like, just move toe, move toe for like days.
That mind-muscle connection.
His toe would start moving and he moved it up. And not only is he now like walking and, all of that again, dude is teaching gymnastics and dancing.
Oh, wow.
Unbelievable.
That's incredible.
Right? But I think this goes to show, and please like take this to the bank.
Yeah.
Like people don't know you and don't let them put limitations on you. It's such an important point.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Sorry. Going back to the story here. It's unbelievable.
That's right.
So getting back to you joined the military.
Mm-hmm.
Did you select power plant immediately? Is that how it worked?
I didn't. I really honestly didn't know what I was doing. And I thought, so my great uncle was a recon Marine. So I was like, well, maybe, and my dad was infantry in the Army. So I was like, well, I'll join our Marine Corps infantry, or, maybe try for recon or something like that. Not really knowing what that meant. And then again, my great uncle continued to mentor me, and he said, the best thing you can do is go learn a trade, because if something ever happens and you get hurt, something falls back, like you'll have a skill set that you can go and then have in the job market. So he's like, I highly recommend find, especially in aviation, go learn aviation. And then if you want to go do those things later in your career, go do it. But it'll give you something to fall back on no matter what happens. And sure. A brilliant piece of advice that I listened to him. And so that's how I ended up in Powerline is just that one sounds cool. Like we could have engines and give me a skill set when I got out that if I needed to, I could get a job in.
Okay. And when you first joined, you probably carried over a lot of who you were.
Mm-hmm.
How did that shift start to happen of who you are today? And
a lot of it goes back to, so there was always the commandant's reading list, right? And there was all these books on there. And I read when I was really little, and then I stopped reading as I got older, just got into other things. And I hadn't spent time studying and reading and just kind of opened up my mind. And I remember it was after, well, one, my wife got me back in the reading, and two, when I was looking through, it was a quote from General Mattis. And he said something to the extent as, if you have the ability to read and you choose not to, you're functioning illiterate.
Yeah.
And that struck me as what's the difference between myself and somebody who doesn't have the ability to read? And today it's nothing, because I'm choosing not to do it. And
that's knowledge versus action. We've been talking about that.
Yes. And my wife, being the partner that she is, once she saw that slight interest, she went out and bought, I was about to go on a deployment, so she bought me a Kindle and loaded like all the Harry Potter series. It's like, hey, it doesn't matter what you read something, and get started, and then from there you can expand and do all that. So I had read the first, I think, 3 or 4 books when I was a kid, and then stopped reading. And so I read the whole series, and then it was another like of those I guess, I don't know what you call them, fantasy style, that genre series, and read through those, and then started reading things that interest me. And actually I spent quite a few years mostly reading fiction until I was at Stanford, and a friend of mine who's still a mentor, actually I'm going to go see him next weekend in Palo Alto.
Nice.
We were sitting outside at a cafe on campus, and he was reading some biography. I can't remember what it was. And I was like, dude, why do you like to read all these books about old, like, dead dudes? Well, they're obviously not here today. They don't know how things work today. Like, what is the point of that? And he said something I'll never forget. He said, Ryan, how much would you pay if you and Warren Buffett could sit down and he could tell you all of his greatest lessons in life? And I was like, oh, Warren Buffett, that dude's billionaire, so it's probably tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And he started laughing, and he looked at me and he said, no, dude, it's $15 on Amazon. Here you go. And he ordered me the Snowball. I think it's what the name of the book is, the Snowball. And he's like, Warren Buffett sat down with an author and boiled down what he felt were his greatest lessons in life and told his story in this book. And he's like, it'll take you a few hours to read it and you learn all that. He's like, so how pompous of you are you to think that you can't learn lessons from somebody who's light years ahead of you? And so it's like that desire to learn, and that looking at those two different reading lists and realize like there's something that General Mattis is onto here. And the fact that he's studying every type of warfare, every area that he's going into, he's studying all this philosophy and these different things that set you up for success, no matter what role you step into. And that really stuck with me in the Marine Corps and carried everywhere that I've gone since then.
Yeah. And you just met General Mattis like a couple days ago, which is kind of cool.
Cool. That was really cool. And yeah, it told some great stories, and he told us, and we probably all heard about Einstein, if you had an hour to save the world, what would you do? And he said, I spend the first 55 minutes understanding the problem and breaking down the problem. And then it would only take me 5 minutes to save the world. Mm-hmm. So it's such an interesting way. And it goes into like what we're doing at Prize. You look at how much time we spent working on the product and on the company and just everything. And it got down to what is the problem we're trying to solve?
Right.
And we spent a lot of time paring down that problem.
Right.
And once we got there, the solution nearing and the rest of it it's hard work, but it's a lot easier than trying to find the problem.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think that there's an important piece there too, because we can focus on a problem and see it as just a problem. And we can also focus on a problem and come from a lens of understanding for solution. Mm-hmm. And there's a saying at Meta that I've very much so resonate with is like, don't bring me problems, bring me solutions. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's really important. And we've talked about this in episodes past, where it's like the can versus will nature of someone going out in the workforce. But I think that a big difference between a can versus will person is that the will person also has the mindset of like, I'm going to solve it, mm-hmm. right? And I'm going to bring the solutions, as opposed to someone who's like, yeah, I can solve it. Action versus knowledge.
Yeah.
So you also had a few incredible mentors mm-hmm. in the Marine Corps.
Absolutely.
And I think that mentorship is incredibly important for any sort of growth.
Yes.
Tell me about your mentors that you had in the Marine Corps.
Yeah. I mean, the very first one that really believed in me, gave me an opportunity, you've worked with before, Anthony Jeffries.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Phenomenal dude. He checking into the unit, there's always that history. It's like, okay, you got to do this and you got to do that, and then you earn this, and you go through those things, and then you get the opportunity to do some of the other stuff. Jeffries led from a way is like, let me show you what all is out there, and let me teach you everything I've learned, and then give you every opportunity to open whatever door you want to open and learn. And so, learning from him, I quickly was able to become a plane captain, and then a turn qual instructor, high-powered turn qual instructor. There's all these certifications and licenses and aviation, and especially in 225, that added a lot to the team and added a lot to my knowledge set. And I was able to do it at a much younger age than if I had joined a different unit or been just a couple years prior to that. And so he really opened up and knocked down hurdles. And he's still a great dude today. And he's a servant leader, and he just gets things out of your way. So that
he's a transformational leader.
Yes. And gets things out of the way to change the opportunities that you have in front of you. So gentlemen like him, working in aviation, especially in the Marine Corps, you get really tight. I mean, you were one of the pilots that I got to work with during that time, and you end up really close with the officers, which I don't know that other branches are the same. The Marine Corps officers enlisted, especially in stuff, I'm pretty sure it's the same in infantry, aviation, other parts of the world, is you end up really close because you work together on the same mission. You have different roles, but you're working together very tight.
Yeah.
And so had some phenomenal mentors. And actually, a big reason why I ended up at Stanford is that, Big Head?
Yeah.
So Captain, at the time, he was Captain Martini, he had been in Iraq with the unit. I joined the unit a few months after they had gotten back, and I got introduced to him through Jeffries. And it was when I was re-enlisting, so I did 2 enlistments. When I was re-enlisting the first time, he sat down and was like, hey, are you sure you want to do this? You're a pretty sharp kid. Like, you've got an opportunity. You could go do some stuff outside of the Marine Corps that would be impressive. And he said something that, and I didn't really know what it meant, but he's like, you have this mentality. You remind me of a lot of guys that I knew from Stanford. Like, that might be a good fit for you. And there's this program, and he showed me, I can't remember what the name of the program was, but eventually the same people that I talked to that led that program ended up at Service to School, which is later on who I contacted with.
Yeah.
So I think it was Beth, I can't remember Beth's last name, but she was there running that program and then ended up at Service to School later. And so after I'd gotten out, his message stuck with me. And I never intended to go to college. You know, I think I said earlier, I had a 2.3 in high school. And so when I got out, I started working as a contractor at depot level maintenance, thinking like, okay, Michael Bobby was right. I got a skill set now. I'll just go make a living. It was very cynical. Like everybody that worked there was like retired Navy.
Sure.
And I mean, a job that should have taken 30 minutes would take 3 days because they didn't want to be out of a job. And it was, I was telling my wife, I was like, I can't work like this long term. Like I see where the waste comes from.
Yeah.
And so with that, I started taking night classes thinking like, well, this will help pay the bills for now. I started a local community college, no intention to transfer. And, but again, it was that mentorship, other mentors I met through the Marine Corps, stepping out. And then when I went to the community college, there was a group of veterans there that all became mentors to me.
Yeah.
That were, you know, a half a semester or a year ahead of you. Like literally guys that just punched through maybe 15 minutes before you did. And they're looking back like, okay, watch out for this, watch out for that.
Right.
And I think that's something we'll probably get to and talk about is a lot of the lessons that we learn and a lot of the ways that we have found success on our paths come from someone else opening that door for us or looking back and showing us the route. And it's a big part of our vision at Prize too is we have the ability to reach back. And I believe it was the club women I learned about back in the early 1900s, and they had this saying, it was lift as we climb. And so they climbed out. Beautiful. And so as they were having an impact in their communities, they were trying to lift their communities up with every opportunity that they had. And so it's something that's stuck with me when I learned that, actually in a class at Mesa, at a community college class. And that lift as we climb motto just has really resonated.
It's rising tide.
Yes.
Well, you know, so there's a couple things that are, I think, worth pulling out here. You know, one, like, mentorship is great, and we should all both seek mentorship and seek to be mentors, because it's not just like, again, knowledge first action. That's the theme of the day. Today's letter is I think that what's important here though is it's sure, and mentorship is important, and being coachable is important. Yeah, because if you're not willing to listen, then someone could talk to you all they want, but it's not going to mean anything.
Yes.
You know? Yeah. And even if you are willing to listen, but you're not willing to put it into action.
Yeah.
Again, what did it say in G.I. Joe? Like, knowledge is half the battle.
Yeah.
Like, it's not worth a whole lot. It's just like ideas. Ideas are great, but everyone's got ideas, and they're not worth much until you actually put action behind them.
Yes.
And I think that that's one of the most incredible things that I've seen you do is like take these things that people have taught you and like being willing to just be humble and swallow your pride. Well, no, sure. We all have ego on some level, but like to swallow your pride and then put it into action and be like, maybe this person knows something, instead of not being coachable and being like, oh, screw this person. Because that sort of mentality can go hand in hand as what you were talking about of like, if they challenge me, you know, then I'm just going to go and do it. Yeah. That can be hand in hand.
Yes.
But there's a time and a place, right? And being able to separate those two things, which I think that being able to be introspective and reflect on ourselves lends to that.
Yes.
Right.
Well, it goes to two different things there is the Marine Corps preaches a lot of leadership and as you come out, you feel like you're ingrained with this leadership. And there's another part of it that's not as talked about and that's really ingrained in the Marine Corps as well, is followership.
Wow.
So knowing when to follow and how to support that person you're following.
That's right.
And so you can find, walk down the street and go into a Barnes & Noble or go on Amazon and look up leadership, and you're going to find an infinite number of books, and there's case studies and there's MBAs that they study leadership. But there's not a single one that talks about followership. And it's such a powerful thing when you can step up and down depending on what's needed in an organization. To sometimes you got to step in that leadership role, and sometimes you need to follow and support the leaders that be. And so that's a piece that I think gets lost a lot, and not as discussed as much, but it's something that's ingrained in a lot of us to know that, okay, this isn't my opportunity to lead, this is my opportunity to follow, and I'm going to follow the best way I can.
Wow.
And you mentioned humility, and it's, to me, it's like, how dare I not learn the lessons of those that came before me? And I think maybe it was Feynman who said, studying physics is like we're standing on the backs of giants.
That's right.
And so
I can't wait. There's gonna be so many quotes on this. This is gonna be
we're probably gonna have to check and make sure they're right.
No, that's fine. That's what I do. There's a section in the notes that is usually quotes attempted to be quoted.
Yeah, perfect.
No, I think that the other really interesting point here, though, is that, like, a quote that I really love is one from I think it's Teddy Roosevelt, where it's like, you can accomplish anything as long as you don't care who gets the credit. And the best leaders here are the ones that hire people that are smarter than them.
Yeah,
they're the ones that bring all. So you should feel dumb as a leader in the room, because again, humility. How dare I bring someone on and then think I know more than you?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, why would I hire someone that I know more than?
Yeah,
right. So like that's the power, being able to build a team, be like, this is your superpower. Let you go do that. Prop you up. This is your thing. Go do it.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. Anyway,
I'm trying to remember who it was, but a mentor of mine, when we were talking about hiring, he was telling me, you should hire people that terrify you.
Yeah.
That you're afraid are going to come and take your job the next day. Because if you surround yourself with those people, you're constantly going to get better. And we've discussed it before. It's like, you're the culmination of the 5 people you must surround yourself with. And so if you're surrounding yourself with people that are trying to get better, be better, that are already better than you, it's going to force you. It's a forcing function for you to have to be better, want to do better, and get better yourself.
That's right.
So,
well, and going back to Jeffries here, and I think that what was amazing about him too is that he didn't just like preach. Like, he embodied
absolutely
the things that he believed in.
Yeah.
And that's where power really is. And I think that, this is like a dad, like for me, right? Like, the kids are not going to do as we say. They're going to do as we do.
Absolutely. Yeah. They're watching.
Right.
Always.
And if at any point they're acting in a way that we don't like, they're just mirrors. That's all they are. I mean, anybody's really a mirror, but like the loop is smaller.
Yeah.
The feedback loop is way smaller.
Absolutely.
So if they're acting a way that you don't love, that's an opportunity to be like, what am I doing?
Yeah. Well, and we going back to the mentor piece, is like every, I guess, impressive thing that I've been able to do or add to the sheet of things has always come via mentor. Like, we discussed about my opportunity to work with JPL. I was an optomechanical engineer at JPL. If you would have asked me, a year before I was an optomechanical engineer, what an optomechanical engineer was, I would have had no clue. I didn't know that existed. And when I was still in community college, I had a mentor who I still talk to, Otto Polanco, and Otto found me through a program called NCAS. So it's NASA Community College Aerospace Scholars Program. And they take community college students and you do an online course and you learn and you, depending on how you score at the end, you get invited to go to one of the centers, and spend, I think it's 3 days or 4 days doing like a Lego rover competition.
Oh yeah. Wait, didn't you invite me to that?
I probably sent to you.
That was the robot.
Yeah, that was at Stanford. Yeah, that was a different, that was a class. And
cool.
That was funny. What he's talking about is at Stanford, there's a robotic autonomy class. Or there's a couple different ones, but there's one specifically where they have a competition at the end of it. And I think there was more students at that robot competition and outside people than I typically saw at like Stanford football games, which is sad because
hey, I mean, it's at the crowd.
It's the environment.
Yeah. I have a nerd Stanford shirt. Yeah, right.
But Otto, like, he brought me in as a community college student. At this point, I hadn't been accepted to any school. Who knew if I was going to transfer? And he brought me in as an intern, and I got to spend the summer working on actual projects at the Jet Propulsion Lab. And I got to go back a second summer, and then had an opportunity to go and work with that group, exactly with Otto's group. And he had the same embodiment. Like, he lived what he was teaching, and he would work these crazy hours delivering hardware and super bright dude. And then he would in his free time, go through my resume, and then he'd call me and we'd talk for hours and talk me through my resume and ask, what sorts of things are you working on? Where are you growing and learning? And he's what are you reading? What are you doing here? And then prepping me for what it looks like to come and be a solid engineer at JPL, and thinking through things like the design process is like, well, yeah, how are you going to put that bolt in? It's like how, and going back to my time as a mechanic, like how many times did I curse engineers for putting something, like breaking the torque on the bolts that held the engine in place? Like you need 6 feet of extensions and this giant breaker bar where somebody usually busted a knuckle. And so thinking like, why would they put that there? Sometimes it's your only option, but other times it's just an engineer doing stuff on a computer and not thinking about somebody has to build this.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Like as a software engineer, a gift that I've been able to develop over time is I started software engineering. I discovered it through UX design.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't start with software engineering. I started with UX design, and I have brought that mentality into the code that I write. You write beautiful code, well-written code. It's generally less bug prone because now it's easier to debug. It's now easier to read. All that stuff makes a difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to back up a bit. I know we're bouncing on kind of all over the place here, which is okay. But like,
that's about how my mind works.
Yeah. Well, I feel you. So going back to the Marine Corps, you served 2 deployments, Westpac, 225, which was the squadron I was in, and then you went on an IA to Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
What were some of your takeaways from that time?
Yeah. A huge one that went back even to like General Mattis talking about being functionally illiterate is working in that country. You saw they'd been at war for thousands of years. And a lot of people were taken advantage of because they didn't have the ability to read and learn what was being used to take advantage of them. But the other side of that is when you step into a village, you see these are some of the most happy people I've ever seen.
How about that?
And they have the most simple lives. And so it was this, like coming back after that deployment, it's like this, dichotomy of the joy and the peace and the happiness of having almost nothing and the simplicity in life and realizing what's truly important. And the other piece of if you're not learning and growing and finding ways to make sure you're not taken advantage of, you don't get stuck in this war-torn area.
Yeah,
and so a lot of it was like I was just in awe at like the interpreters. I had a couple interpreters that they learned English by watching like 90s sitcoms.
That was fun.
It was hilarious because the jokes and stuff that they would make were very dated, but they worked for the environment.
Yeah.
And it gave me a deeper respect and love for people that I didn't know that I could have had I not spent time in an environment like that.
Yeah.
Getting to see, obviously going down range or doing any of those sorts of things has its hard times. And you have to deal with the conflicting emotions and then the other things that come outside of that. But trying to turn every opportunity, every lesson into something to learn from. Looking back on that time is it really instilled in me a deep love of people and a strong desire to continue to learn no matter what I did.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. And something that I don't think that a lot of people take on. Suffering's a choice.
Yeah.
I know we both appreciate the Stoic philosophy, so it's something we resonate on there. Okay. I'm sure that, there's some pieces that affected you there also in other ways. And, we don't necessarily have to touch on those, but the mentality that you just described also probably helps in overcoming some of those things that maybe happen.
You would think so, but it's that going back to that knowledge versus knowledge and action. And so these things, but do you actually live these things? And I think that was the hardest part for me. And after I got out, it was realizing that I needed to take care of myself because it goes back to it's probably mentioned in a lot of different books, but the airplane analogy is like, you can't put someone else's mask on until you put your own on.
100%. Yes.
And so for 10 years, I just tried to put the mass on of those around me, not realizing that I was suffocating. And because I had been suffocating, I was suffocating those around me. And so it took a long time to step into the fact that I needed to work through a lot of things and try to find a way to get out of the mind, or maybe not the mindset, but the mentality I'd built myself into from not taking care of myself in those times, in those situations. And so when you have a family, like, you drag them down with you.
Oh,
you don't take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And I think if I can say anything to transitioning veterans, like, get the help, take care of yourself, lean into your loved ones, find mentors and people that have stepped the path just before you, and let them help you in that time of transition. We see too many that get lost today because they're buried in it. And they can't find a way out, and they feel that, and they lose hope. And that's why we need Prize today.
Yeah.
Is we need to give an outlet to be able to reach back. We need to lift as we climb and pull more of our brothers and sisters out from.
Well, it's insidious too, right? And especially, again, we've talked about this in other episodes, but like the idea of, like, for instance, if a non-negotiable for me most days is meditation.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't do that, one day it's usually okay. 2 days, though, it starts to affect things and I won't realize it, right? And then I'll meditate the next day or something, and then all of a sudden I'm like, wow, I was being an asshole.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And to your point of, like, taking care of yourself, it's just so insidious. It's hard to recognize in the moment because we have these pathways that we built over 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever, how many years.
Yeah.
And trying to overcome them can be really, really, really hard. And it's that constant practice that allows us to shrink that cycle to where you can make an effective change in the moment, right?
Yeah.
So going back to, getting out, where were you now between the ears getting out of the military? Because I know that we've talked about this too. Big Head, brought up, Stanford.
Yeah.
But you were like, oh, I'm going to go do that. You had no idea what Stanford was. Yeah. Help me understand both where you were, like, time and space between the ears, navigating that journey, but then also bringing in some of, like, okay, what you were struggling with at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot there.
There is a lot.
And I mean, every veteran that's transitioned knows we all have slightly different paths, but we all have similar struggles sometimes. And the way that we struggle is different, but the reasons we struggle isn't always that different. And so getting out, there was a mistake. So the day I was supposed to re-enlist, so I had actually signed a third contract and I had intended to stay in the Marine Corps. I got histed, and so I was supposed to go recruiting, which I wasn't stoked about. But I didn't know what else to do. I didn't have another option. Like I said, I had a 2.3 in high school, and I was decent at being a Marine. At the same time, I had my first daughter, and I told myself, even before I got married, is if I get to a point where being a Marine and being a husband and a father, like, start to conflict, then I'm not going to be a solid Marine. I'm not going to be the best Marine that I can be, and I'm also not going to be the best husband or father I can be.
Yeah.
And so I had signed those papers and then had my daughter, and then some stuff happened in between there where I was like, oh, what was I thinking? Like, I just put my life in the hands of these people that, didn't really care what happened to my wife or daughter, unfortunately. And so the day I was supposed to re-enlist, not my career planner, but the career planner, I think from the mag, came down because he was like, hey, where's your re-enlistment package? And I was like, I don't know, dude, I turned it in like 6 months ago. You have to do it way in advance because it takes months to fill out all the paperwork. And he's like, okay, let me see if I can find it. Well, they couldn't find it.
Oh.
So I remember I walked into this hallway to another unit that had been deployed, and I called my wife, and I was Britt, and I was like, hey, so they lost my package, but I'm really thinking about not signing a new one. What are your thoughts? And we've been married almost 16 years, and every day she's been on my side, and she says, like, I'm in your corner. Whatever you want to do, we'll figure it out. Whatever you want to do.
That's beautiful.
And I'm a believer. So faith helps guide me in a lot of things. And, I've had my ups and downs like any believer. But at that time, I kind of stopped to pray, like, okay, what do you have intended for me here, God? Like, where am I supposed to go with this? As I'm praying, I'm feeling more and more led that, no, this is like, go take a bet on yourself, without any backup plan, without any understanding of what was happening. And, I stopped and I looked down, and the person that was looking up at me was the devil, because I happened to be standing on the red table. And yeah, dude, it was powerful. So
That is powerful.
So he's staring at me, and I'm like, okay, that's enough.
Yeah.
So I went and said, all right, never mind, I'm not going to re-enlist. And it ended up a whole big thing. But my package was gone. And so I quickly had to transition out without knowing that was what I was going to do. And so the speed at which I had to do things and get prepared for leaving the military, and then try to figure out, okay, I've got a wife and a kid now. How do I support them?
Yeah.
And so I was fortunate enough to have built a relationship with the depot level guys that were working, just because I'd come back to aviation, and I was a sergeant running the shop, and had the opportunity to go out and talk to those guys as I was getting out. And it's like, well, are you guys hiring? And, I know how to do this stuff. I'm pretty good at it. Here's my resume. And ended up, getting a job doing that. I still had no intention to go to college. It's like, well, I'll just do this the rest of my life. I'll stay here in San Diego and I'll work on jets.
Yeah.
Which was a great idea until I got like my first paycheck, and I started looking. I was like, hold on, I got to pay for that. I got to pay for this. Like, I had no clue how finance, and I was like, not just cover, but like, I got to pay for benefits. I got to pay taxes. And, I want to put money into a 401k because I want to be able to retire. And I realized, like, oh, I can't afford to put in a 401k. Oh, our benefits might be too rich for us right now. We got to cut this down some, and I can't not pay taxes. So here we go. So I was looking around, what am I going to do? I can't ask for a raise. I just started. I don't really have any other skill set to go and find a job. And I realized I had the GI Bill there. I was like, well, I could take night classes. That'll at least give me some BH and help pay. And that's how I started my college journey, was taking night classes while working during the day at this on depot level maintenance. And my first semester I did well, got A's, and was like, oh, college isn't as terrible as high school. This is kind of fun.
How you had grown.
I had grown. And it was different. I was given, instead of being told, here's what you have to learn. Let's cram all this in your head, and then I'm going to give you a test at the end. You're going to regurgitate it. I had, another mentor, Professor Marquez. The first introductory class I had for college was trig. I'd take this trigonometry class, and he sends a video to the whole class, and he says, hey, I just want to invite you guys to learn how to do magic. And I was like, what is this? He's like, well, I mean, it's more of a superpower. Like, let me show you. And he's walking through his neighborhood, and he's like, you see that tree? How big do you think that tree is? He's like, I can tell you exactly how big it is by trig. And he puts his hands up and he measures the angle, and he shows it that. He's like, this is a superpower. I bet you didn't know you could do this. And I was like, whoa, like, this is a totally different way to look at a subject that a lot of people don't like to do, especially trigonometry. And I had to start in below. Like, I went on to study engineering, but because of my previous academic strengths, the path that I had taken, I had to start in like below college reading and writing, because I didn't, eating. I ate a lot of red crowns, but I started to eat some blue ones towards the end, which mixed it up a little bit, but it wasn't enough. So I still had some issues there. And then trigonometry, which typically start in calculus. So I had to do trig and then pre-calc, and then I could get to calculus. But that professor just completely changed the way I thought about learning those sorts of subjects. And it's like, hold on, these things are useful. This is fun. This is just problem solving in a different way.
It is. Yeah, that's right.
And yeah, so then I started taking night classes, and I had done pretty well. And my wife asked me, she said, okay, you can't get a bachelor's degree from here. If you want to get a degree, what do you want to study and where do you want to go? And I was like, well, so I started doing some, like, what are the hardest ones to get? Because if I'm going to do it and somebody's going to pay for it, why not just challenge myself to the max? And it was like, I don't know, medicine, become a doctor. I was like, well, I don't want to go to school for 20 years and then like do surgeries and stuff. And then there was engineering. I was like, actually, engineering would be a blast. And I looked up the different kind. There was computer science, and I was like, I don't really want to do computer science. And there was astronautical engineering, which had to do with space, had to do with, there's mechanical components, there's physics. and computer science, like a whole bunch of different things rolled into one. I was like, that actually sounds a lot of fun. And I want to go to Stanford because it's like how I said.
Yeah.
And so me being naive and not understanding colleges, I didn't realize Stanford was Stanford at the time. And when I told my wife this, she said, okay, that's where you want to go? I said, yes. She's like, all right. So she got us a hotel near the campus. We packed up. Our daughter was 18 months old. And we drove the 9 hours from San Diego to Palo Alto. And we spent 2 days on campus. And I remember sitting through they do like, not an orientation, but a tour. And they bring you in and they talk, and we're sitting in the room, and everybody around me is like, their kids are probably freshmen, maybe sophomores or middle school. And then I'm there with my 18-month-old daughter. And the guy, talking, he comes to me kind of on the first break, and he says, hey, I'm guessing you're not here for her, talking about my 18-month-old. He's like, I don't think you're getting her ready for Stanford just yet. So are you here thinking as a transfer student? I was like, yeah, actually I'm at community college now. That's why we're here to visit. And he said, well, just so you know, the transfer acceptance rate is like just under 1% right now for acceptance. I was like, okay. So we walked out, and my wife started
saying there's a chance.
Exactly. It was like that. I was like, that. So I was like, so you're saying, how does a girl like me end up with a guy like you? And it's less than 1%. And I was like, so you're saying there's a chance?
Yeah.
And she's like, so what do you think here? I've always struggled with how does that make you feel? And I've been working on that, trying to get better, because feelings have a lot to do with the way that we interact with the world.
We are emotional creatures.
100%.
Yeah.
And as much as I'm logic driven, and I can be a logic bully at times, we are almost always driven by some emotion to something.
That's right.
Or some feeling that we don't know is there. And so until you can learn to recognize it, categorize it, and then try to find out like what caused that feeling, then you don't really know. You're just you're constantly shooting from the hip. You're flying around, and you don't really realize why you have certain mannerisms or why you react in a certain way, because you haven't bothered to stop and learn. And so I'm working on that process, still working on it today. I'll probably always be working on it.
Hey man, we don't have problems or things to go towards.
That's right.
Are we alive?
That's right. But she said, what was your thought there? And I said, well, it's not zero. And she's like, no, it's not zero. Let's do this. And she believed in me from the beginning. And for 2 more years after that, continued to go to class, study, work towards an engineering degree. And the first year I applied, I got waitlisted, but didn't get in. And this comes to another mentor of mine who really helped me during this time, those 2 years. So I signed up for service to school, which helps veterans in preparing to tell our story to admissions counselors. And so I got paired up with a gentleman, Eric Whitreich, who had a degree. I believe he worked in finance or something like that. And then after 9/11, enlisted in the Army to become a Green Beret. Enlisted.
Wow.
Yeah. Great guy who spent a ton of hours helping me like polish my story and prepare, like, how do I tell my story through the media that they've given me, these questions they're asking.
Yeah, that's right.
And so with Service School and Eric, we wrote back and forth. Like he'd say, okay, this gets lost here. Here's that. Like, what do you think this story, do you have another story you can tell that helps? Like I see where you're going with that, but it doesn't really illustrate the point that you're trying to make. And so back and forth, tons of hours between the two of us. And the first year I got waitlisted, but not accepted. And it was another one of those like, oh, how does that make you feel? I was like, well, yeah, I almost got there, which means there's something there. Let me work on it more this next year. And it was after I didn't get it, like when I found that I wasn't going to make it off the wait list, is that very next, like that moment I reached out to Eric. And he's like, okay, so what's the plan? I was like, we're going to go for this next year. And he was like, all right, I'm in. And so we worked on it for a whole nother year in preparation. Then that second year I got accepted and got to transfer and go to Stanford. One part of that 1 to 2% that you accepted.
There's so many incredible points to pull out of this. And I want to be careful in grabbing what I think will be useful here. Mm-hmm. When you keep mentioning mentors, and what I don't want each of you to take away from this is the idea that, oh, Ryan was lucky because he had all these mentors. it's easy to fall back into that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can be your mentor.
100%.
Because everyone is your master in something.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about this in the last episode, actually.
Okay.
Everyone is your master in something.
Yeah.
And really, it's a matter of being more open to believing and trying to find what that person is a master of
Mm-hmm.
to allow you to be open to that. So anybody can be your mentor. Now, here's the thing. You don't want to just accept anyone to be your mentor.
No.
However, it's when you were in a conversation with someone, being able to look at them and be like, what do you have to teach? What is your gift?
Yeah.
You know, and then being open to that gift. That's why you have so many mentors. It's not because, I mean, sure, there's a time and place piece of it too.
Mm-hmm.
I bet you there's time and place things happen more than you think. It's being open to it.
Yeah.
That now allows you to say, okay, this person was my mentor.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what success is the cornerstone of preparation, and the right time and the opportunity shows up there. And so if you're not preparing for whatever success is coming your way, there's no way you can take advantage of it. And so you have to constantly be preparing yourself for what's going to happen. And if you sit by and wait for the mentor to come down and tell me like, this is what you need to do, this is where you're going. That person's not just going to show up. And you're not going to, even if they do, you're not going to be prepared to hear what they have to say, because a good mentor is going to tell you the things you don't want to hear.
That's right.
They're going to help you see your weaknesses and strengthen your strengths. And that's not always easy.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't think it's ever easy.
No, it's never easy, but nothing that's easy is typically things that are easy are not worthwhile.
Yeah.
But it is simple.
Yes.
And I think people confuse those things. Easy and simple are not the same thing.
Absolutely.
You know, I think that similar to you, you know, the mentorship piece has been really important for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I joke sometimes about how like I collect mentors like Pokemon, you know, not that I was ever into Pokemon, but you know,
You don't have to let it kick.
No, I know, right? I know. I wasn't, I swear. No, but you know, there's times where seeking one out is important. And I think there's a lot of great opportunities out there too for the military community, not just in like, you know, who might be in your unit, of what leaders you may have, but there's like ACP, there's Post Federati, you know, there's Services School.
Yeah.
There's a lot of these great organizations that are out there to help us in this capacity.
Yep.
But then it is also that humility piece. It's also being able to take that step back and be like, wow, that person said something that I didn't necessarily like to hear,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe I need to hear it.
Yeah.
And finding that nugget in the mound of shit, you know, is so important. You know, like sometimes I'll talk to people where, you know, I'll say I'll read a book about someone, or, you know, like I'll go to like an event or something, right? And the person there, I may not agree with a lot of the stuff they say, but there's going to be that one or two piece of things in there that I'm like, wow, like that's awesome.
Yeah.
And it's being able to like sit down and deal with maybe a lot of that stuff to find those nuggets, the diamond in the rough, if you will. Well, that's cool, man. I love that. I love this story because it is really inspirational, and it goes to show that honestly, even us Marines, as crane eaters, you know, can sit there and accomplish some amazing things.
Yeah, I was an enlisted dude. Like,
well, no, that doesn't mean anything, man. And yeah, I was an officer, and I look up to you. I think that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You know, like you can learn from anyone.
Absolutely.
So you went to Stanford, you went to JPL. So talk to me a little bit more now about like, because at some point we're busy and we're avoiding the things that we need to take care of. When did that come to a head for you?
So when I finished my bachelor's, I got accepted to be able to continue on my master's, but I also got a job opportunity to go to JPL at the time. This is in 2019. So I thought there's got to be a way to split both of these, because I have now at this point, I had a wife and two kids, so I have 3 dependents. I can't just stay a student forever. I have to get out and make a living. And so, you know, I was fortunate to be able to work it out with Stanford, where I could move to a different side of Stanford and take classes remotely, and then go up to campus where I needed to deliver. And I could work at JPL full time. not realizing like we're moving to a new area. Now I have wife and 2 kids, and my youngest was about 2, and now we're in LA. I'm working at JPL, typically 10 to 12-hour days, and then I have Stanford grad school on top of that I have to do. And we're in a 900 square foot house in Glendale, California. And it was that first semester where I just was so heads down trying to work that I hit a wall. And I almost dropped out of Stanford. I was like, and I told my wife, I was like, I'm done. I can't continue to do this. Thankfully, she convinced me to take a break. Stanford's great about that. A lot of the schools are nowadays will let you, they realize the value in stepping and doing something different and not just, constantly going through.
Yeah.
So I was able to take a pause and then slow down. And then COVID happened, which for most people was, for most of the world, it's been a terrible event. But for me, it forced me to slow down. And it gave me this opportunity to be home.
Yeah.
Like we went remote, and we went out to visit some family in Tennessee, fell in love with it, and decided to stay out there. And so for 2 years, I worked remote. I'd go back and forth to deliver hardware and things like that. But I was home way more than I had ever been, which meant I had to face all of these things that I hadn't faced.
Yeah.
In the, let's see, at that point it was 20, so 6 years since I had gotten out. And then the few years before that from some of those deployments. So it was, coming up on 8 years to a decade of pushing stuff down and then slowing down to a point where, you discussed meditation. Meditation forces you to sit with yourself for time so that you can see the things as they come to the surface.
Right.
I purposely avoided meditation so those things couldn't come to the surface and I could just try to push it down deep. And it took its toll on me to a point, a very, very dark point where, my wife finds me in a closet in a position that you never want to put yourself in. And she climbs down in there with me and helps pull me out and realize like, I need to get help. I can't continue to try to do this on my own, and I can't bury myself in work to get through it.
That's right.
No amount of work or books are going to get me through it. Like I need to do the work. That's still an ongoing process. Sure. It probably will be the rest of my life.
Absolutely.
But I had to stop and go get the help. And I couldn't see it myself. I had to see it through the lens of loved ones. And now that as I've gone through it and I realize like, man, I've taught my kids to walk on eggshells at certain times because of my, mentality at times, or because the way I carry myself, just rough and quick to like blow something off and move on. Like, okay, that's not really important. Let's go. And I've had to work through that and realize like I've been given a blessing, these 3 mini humans that I get to train. And I was teaching them to be anxious and depressed and afraid of the world at times, which I could not have gotten to where I am today from where I was if I continued to be afraid of the world, if I had lived in that closet.
Yeah.
And so that was the time for me where it like shocked me awake to say, hey, this isn't just affecting you. This is affecting your loved ones.
That's right.
And I talked about taking care of myself, but I really didn't bother to learn to take care of myself until I learned that I couldn't take care of the others until I could learn to take care of myself. And I thought I could just, duct tape and Motrin, take a knee, take some Motrin, duct tape. I mean, I had to bust out the electric tape barrier. Thank you for that. Yeah. Still carry that around because you never know what you're going to need for it. But taking the time and the space to learn what my mannerisms, tics were, the things that were setting me down that dark path, and realize that there's ways to get help out there. And I was very against using any sort of medicine for the longest time. I put it off, and I was like, no, that's just going to turn me into a zombie. Or it's going to make it so I'm so codependent that if in a situation where I can't get a prescription, then I'm going to hurt myself. I finally had some, again, good mentors and a great doctor who talked me through all of the options, showed me all the impact and like was really gentle with me and gave me the opportunity to get some of the help that I needed. And it wasn't until after that when my wife noticed that, oh, that didn't really, like, you did spiral after that. This is huge. Like, you're making a step in the right direction. That's the little wins. I mean, it's always there lingering, but there is help. There's opportunities to get help, and don't be closed-minded to those that are trying to help you, that are giving you options and opportunities.
Yeah. Well, help me understand a little bit of the path. Like, what did you do in order to actually work through it?
Yeah. So then the first thing I started with was CBT, because again, I didn't want to touch any sort of medicine. And so the cognitive behavioral training, and that's recognizing when you're on these spirals, like how do you end up in the closet at that point? It doesn't just go from, hey, I'm out, I'm doing something, and now I'm in the closet. It's a triggering event or something, and then it's a whole bunch of other stuff. And before you know it, you're far down the spiral.
Yeah.
And it's a lot harder to get up it if you wait till you get to the bottom to recognize you're in it. And so it was trying to learn to recognize when those things are happening. And most of the time it starts, for me, it's physiological, like the sweating, the panting, the heart rate increase, like essentially the oncoming of what would be a panic attack, I guess. I didn't realize at the time that that's what it was, because I thought, I'd pictured a panic attack as like you're screaming in the corner or something. Didn't realize it was just the tunnel vision and so recognizing that, hey, this is my body's response telling me that something is in my mind not right. My fight or flight system had been hijacked, and every thread, whether it was real or not, became a fight or flight moment.
That's right. Yeah.
And so my body was prepared, and a couple of things that really helped me understand that, because I'm very cerebral, is the body keeps a score from Basil van der Kolk. I think that's his name. Really helped me understand, like, the way that traumatic experiences are carried in our body and how they come out as different physical ailments, and how to recognize them. So that was really eye-opening. And then there was another book, and I can't remember the author right now. It was called I Don't Want to Talk About It. And it was specific to men's depression and the legacy of that came from the wrong understanding of stoicism. So
yes,
that stoic man of I'm not emotional and things don't hurt me.
Yeah.
Versus true stoicism, and realizing that you have to be prepared for what's coming. You can't be prepared if you don't understand it.
That's right.
And you're not learning.
Yeah.
And so, there's so much that had happened during that time. And so I started with CBT, and that was the recognition piece of it. But even that wasn't enough sometimes. And so then it was meds, and still continued down that path working. And not sure what the next step is, but.
Well, what's been the most impactful thing for you?
I think it was being open to the meds after all those years.
So overcoming limiting beliefs.
Exactly. Because there's sometimes where you, like, my physiological response have been so hijacked that no amount of training could help me just switch off of that track.
We have defined neural pathways at that point.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so this has given me the opportunity to recognize that, and to be able to see the struggles from a different level, and see them not 2 days after they happen, but as they're happening.
Shortening the loop. Yeah, I totally get it.
Yeah. So I think that's the big part, at least most recently, that's helped, because I was just closed off to that.
Yeah.
Afraid that I've got a wild brain and it's all over the place sometimes, but it's helped me get to where I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I was afraid I was going to numb it and turn certain things off in it. And it's not the case. What it does is it shuts off some of the things that your brain doesn't need to be focused on, so that you can be focused on the things that matter.
So have you explored, like, psychedelics at all?
I have not. No.
So some of the things that
I'm not opposed to it, though. So I know that a lot of folks have got help, and it's unfortunate to see that some of that funding and that research it's been shut off.
Yeah.
Because I believe there is help out there for some folks, especially ones with deep traumatic experience, where this can help them come to terms with it.
Well, I think there's a misunderstanding here, right? Like if you look at, because people, when they'll go like any drugs, like I know alcohol, right? We all know alcohol in the military, right? But what does alcohol do? It's an avoidant, right? It's allowing me to just completely forget about and not face the things that I need to face, right? Marijuana, like it can be, again, used effectively, but it's still an avoidant, right? It still allows you to kind of bury and not have to face truly the things that you need to. The thing about psychedelics, though, is you can't do that with a psychedelic. The psychedelic makes you face it, you know? Yep. And it does another thing here too, right? Especially in lower doses, so like microdosing and stuff like that, is it builds in the space. It's a dissociative, right? And this is, I think, what you're talking about is like being, and tell me if I'm wrong, but like it gives you this chance now to like observe how you're reacting and being like, wait a minute. Is that how I want to react? Is that the story that I want to be telling myself right now? And you can actually sit in that space for a second and then decide. Yeah. It's that dissociative that allows you to do that. And I think that, like, personally speaking, was really powerful for me in being able to take that pause for a second. And what I found too, because unlike other substances, right, you can, especially if it's avoidant, take it more and more and more and more and more because you want to keep avoiding. Yeah. I found personally that through something like microdosing and psychedelics, it actually made me take it less and less and less and less and less, because the effect that I was trying to get out of it, that was, you know, like trying to actually work through something, I didn't need it as much. Yeah. And it just kind of became that self-weaning thing that all of a sudden it was like, well, cool. To your point, the cycle is now short enough to where I can recognize it without that and be able to make the decision that I want to make. Far from perfect. But now I think is more consistent, you know, over the years that I've worked through these sorts of things that have been able to allow me to sit there and take that breath and be like, okay, I'm being an asshole. Yeah. How can I shift this so that I don't have the effects that I don't want in this situation? Yeah. And I think that a lot of the medicines, as you just talked about, can offer similar benefits here in helping to build that space.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yes. Yeah. I think that the difference there is sometimes the medicines are used to turn off physiological responses, versus the experience you're talking about is instead of shutting off what's happening, you're seeing it now from a different lens.
That's right.
And you're able to, you know, a lot of, and I believe it's in the Body Keeps Scores, he talks about this, a lot of traumatic experiences split us. So at that moment, you have this mentality from whatever age you were. So you went through a traumatic experience at 6. Now you have this 6-year-old, everything they've learned up to that point. And your 6-year-old is how you respond to the world today for a lot of things. And so the psychedelics and the CBT and the different things is when you can face that and you can tell your 6-year-old self or your 20-year-old self that the experience you went through was traumatic, but it doesn't have to define who you are. That's right. And you can reconnect those pieces and you can become a whole individual again. You don't end up with these, you know, 3 different, you know, childlike minds running every time that something comes up that's either difficult or scary or makes you anxious. Is now you have a whole being with all of the lessons you've learned to be able to look at it and see it. And that's a piece I haven't gotten to yet. And I've read about, and it's that knowledge versus dropping down to the heart thing. And that I think is where the difference between what you're talking about is it's helping you reach and become a holistic person. And I think with the meds, you have to also do the work with a therapist.
That's right.
Somebody who helps you work through those experiences and combines those, and then you can reconnect yourself. So yeah, I think that's the piece, is whatever avenue it is, like make sure you have someone there to help you connect with yourself through all of that and bring the whole piece of you together.
Well, and if I may, I actually think you're touching a little bit on ego, right? Like what we've, again, talked about this in the show. People may disagree with me, and that's fine. The way I see it is like ego, what is ego? Like ego is there to protect you. That's what it's there for.
Yeah. Self-preservation.
And self-preservation. And especially when we've had these traumatic times in our life, right? We think we need protection. Yeah. When sometimes we don't. And this leads in some ways to anxiety, especially like social anxiety, any protection from what they may think out there. And your 6-year-old self at that point is saying, hey man, you need protection against X.
Yep.
And something I've said here before, there's this whole concept of ego death.
Mm-hmm.
I personally don't agree with ego death, because if you're trying to kill something that's trying to protect you, it's going to want to protect itself more.
Yeah.
Whereas if instead, as you're illustrating here, you can actually love it and tell it that it's okay. Thank you for trying to protect me. Thank you for trying to keep me safe. You're safe. You're okay. I love you. Thank you.
Yeah.
It has the ability now to melt away and allow you to bring more of yourself out. And I think that recognizing these physiological things that tend to happen can be now triggers or cues, right? To cue you into like, hey, maybe that scared 6-year-old self is coming out to protect me, and I don't need that. I don't need to be protected right here. I'm not actually in any danger right now. And it's the space there that then allows you to take advantage of this, hey man, I love you. If you can sit over there and see that I'm safe, all is going to be okay.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah.
That's really hard.
Being a parent.
Being a parent.
And anytime you see your child suffering, being able to pick them up and remind them like, hey, you're safe.
Yeah.
It's doing that with yourself,
Mm-hmm.
that disconnected version of yourself.
Yeah, buddy.
Which is a lot harder, I think, for most of us to do, is to look at ourselves like that hurt child of ours. And it's changing that framework. And I think that's where a lot of these things come in, is being able to change the way you see yourself and what happened to you, and then grow from there.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful, man. Thank you for sharing that story there. I know it's not always easy to do. And we've also mentioned this in the show before, but like, don't hold it in.
Yeah.
Share these stories. It allows you to become more in tune with yourself. And by the way, we're all service-oriented people. It's in the name, service members. When you share these stories with people, you're also helping them.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times we'll sit there and we'll think no one can relate.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, there's always someone out there that can relate.
Yeah.
And being able to find that community instead of burying yourself or hiding in a closet or in, like in your house, using things to avoid.
Yes.
It'll be okay for the moment, but what you're actually doing is making it worse. Because if you are struggling from social anxiety, if you are struggling from these things that are keeping you locked away, it'll become harder because you're practicing. It'll become harder to then go out into the world and face it someday.
Yeah.
And it just builds on itself. You're practicing staying behind. And I offer you to come out and make that choice to share yourself with the world and help someone else in the process.
And it requires something that's terrifying to most of us, especially any service member that prepared to go into combat or whatever situation it is, and it's vulnerability.
Yeah, buddy.
And you can't be an effective leader if you can't be vulnerable at times.
Sure.
Which means you can't lead yourself, you can't lead your family, you can't lead whatever situation you're in if you can't be vulnerable at times. And so it's an opportunity for us to share some of the difficulties and be vulnerable with each other, to open up the door for others that don't know that these are options for them.
That's right.
And so it's one of the scariest, hardest things to do. I think it's like I put another rifle in my hand and send me down range before I had to open up and talk about my feelings. Like I'm more comfortable in that environment than I am to sit down and necessarily have an open dialogue and conversation. But that's where the growth happens.
That's where the
stepping into that uncomfortable situation.
And to your point, that's where the real leadership happens.
Yes.
And you'll get people on board with you to go down range to do what we need to do if we actually can open up about those things, because they're likely dealing with the same things.
Yes.
All right. We covered a whole lot of ground, which is really good. And I really appreciate it. What's your favorite book?
Ooh, that's tricky.
Yeah.
So
give us a few if you need to.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few that I constantly go back to. And actually there's more that get added to that list, but I love reading Meditations.
Yeah.
From Marcus Aurelius. here's a dude a few 2,000 years ago that's struggling with some of the same stuff we are, of like, hey, I don't want to get out of this nice, comfortable, warm bed and go out and face the things that I have to face today. But he's got reminders in there to say, were you made to lay in bed and be comfortable, or were you meant to go out and accomplish things? And so there's a lot of great lessons throughout meditations. And every time I read it, I find something different.
Yeah.
So that one's fun. I love reading the Bible. It's the same thing. There's so many different lessons and stories in there, and things to help grow your faith or grow as an individual. What else? I'm constantly cycling different between fiction and nonfiction. If you want to read good fiction, any sort of sci-fi books, I enjoy those. Like I said, I read the Harry Potter series, so that helped get me started. Some of the most recent things. Oh, it's so hard because, you and I both have the same problem where
reading so many books.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we have piles of books, or we're constantly reading or listening to something. I love what Ryan Holiday's done in terms of writing out. He just released Wisdom as work. So writing about the different philosophies and showing that Stoicism isn't about being shut off to the world, but being a calm presence in the world, like in the chaos. And so I love that path. Even to me, when I look at Jesus's lessons, like he was a bit of a stoic, like stepped into these chaotic situations,
Right.
had a calm presence when people were angry or scared. And he could be that loving, vulnerable presence in that moment, which to me is a beautiful example of how we can show up into the world. Dang, I wish I would have thought more about this.
No worries, man. No worries. I get it. We can always drop more in the show notes later anyway.
Yeah. I have a massive list of books that I'm constantly cycling through. So
I know you do.
we should probably do like a prize
book
review.
Yeah. Actually, you ever follow like Tom Bilyeu?
Yes. Yep.
Have you seen his book list?
Yes. Yep.
That to me was one of the first things that got me I shouldn't say the first things, but it was one of the things that set me on a path of like, okay, this is a structured path of what I can follow and build my knowledge. I'll drop a link to that. What about your favorite podcast?
I don't spend a lot of time listening to podcasts.
Oh, no?
So yeah, I travel a lot, and so I'm typically listening to audiobooks rather than and music. My brother's a musician, my dad was a musician, so I listen to a lot of music, but a lot of audiobooks too while I'm traveling. I found a list somewhere online. It's like 100 books that every man must read before he dies, and it's essentially all the books that formed and help explain Western philosophy, essentially.
Oh, cool.
So a lot of those are stories, and so for me, I love stories and books that are written like stories, because we're built on oral tradition.
That's right.
We've had stories passed down. Even the Marine Corps, like we have so many stories in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
And half a boot camp, you stand outside waiting in the chow line, and you're yelling stories. First female Marine, that oldest Marine to serve, longest serving Marine, first Commonwealth Marine Corps. Like all these things, you're constantly burying, like ingraining in your head by telling their stories out loud while you're there. And then we tell our own stories, and they evolve over time. Like something happens and you tell the story right then. And then as you get distance from it, there's other lessons you pick up, and or as you learn other things in life, so you tell stories. So I love a lot of classical stories that are written, like Dostoevsky. There's so much of the like dark human psyche in Dostoevsky that is like, if you're not thinking about this, you like Crime and Punishment. Is it Raskolnikov or I can't remember the main character's name, but he commits this terrible act, and then he gets lost in the madness of it. And it's one of those things that if he had someone to reach out to, or if he had someone to communicate, a relationship with someone, he never could have gone down that path, because it would have been able to talk about the things that he was experiencing, going through. And so there's like, the Russians write it a bit differently. But it's so interesting to read the depth of humanity in something like Dostoevsky, and then you turn around and you read something like A Tale of Two Cities, and you see this parallelism of the French Revolution, and then the British high society, and you see someone who comes from one and is in the other, and essentially is put on the chopping block and family fighting to get them off that and then end up wrapped up in that situation. So reading those stories tells you so much history of those time periods, and shows you, like going all the way back to meditations, like for as much as we think we've learned and as smart as we think we are today, because
how about that?
Because we can go get penicillin now when we're sick, we still are making the same mistakes.
Yeah.
We're still struggling with the same things thousands of years later. I don't know if that'll ever change. Like that's probably what humanity is.
It's being human.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And we're all human.
Yes.
And I think there's a lot of wisdom in just being able to embrace that.
Yes.
Okay. This is awesome. Thank you so much.
Yep.
How can people get a hold of you?
I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me. I don't really have other social media, so you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on the Prize website. As we go forward, they'll have my contact info there. And then, if you see me on LinkedIn or on Prize or on anything, reach out. Like, don't hesitate. Shoot me an email, shoot me a message. Happy to respond, especially if you need help. Like if I can help mentor you, or I can help find you the right mentor, or if you're just in that struggle, reach out. Like, don't wait. Myself, others on the Prize team, I'm sure, and then more friends and family, others that we have around, like we're here for you.
Yeah. And I think that's a very important point is you're not alone.
Yes.
It's a very important point. You don't have to do this alone. Thanks so much, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate you. As usual, please like and subscribe. It really helps us out, especially as we grow and we try to get this out to everyone. If you have any feedback, please let us know. It's so huge. It allows us to make this thing better. I know we've had some issues in the past with some podcasts. Hopefully you think it's getting better. But if you have people that you want to bring onto the show, if you have questions that you think we should ask, open to all of those, please drop it in the comments below.
And if you want to sneak Dan on so he can tell his story, eventually we need to get Dan out there because he's got a phenomenal story, and he's giving us a voice to tell our stories, but he's got an incredible story himself, and the things that he's grown through. He's been a great mentor of mine. So it makes me so excited to see what we're doing here at Prize, to be part of this team, and to just see the growth and change that's happened with each member. And so
what it's about.
I can't wait for the world to get to see and hear more of your story.
Well, thank you.
And so please invite him, give him an opportunity to tell it, because it's phenomenal. And thank you.
Appreciate you, brother.
Absolutely.